So in this haircut tutorial, we are going to be doing a 360 waves cut with a low to mid taper. And when cutting any form of waves, whether it just be on top or full 360, you always want to start off by combing the hair and trying to find the client's wave pattern, right? And what combing the hair does is just elevate the hair off the scalp, so when we go through it with the guard, it gets a nice even cut. And also what combing through the hair does is allow you to find the wave pattern. So before we start cutting, we always want to find where the crown is at, because that is kind of where the 360 waves grow from. That is the center point. So you want to make sure that you're cutting in the direction of his wave pattern, because if you are to go against it, it will create a patch, which is one of the worst things you could do with 360 or waves cut. Because if you patch them and you leave a patch in the waves, it kind of ruins the entire cut, you feel me? So you want to make sure you're finding which way and which direction the crown wants to lay, and you would cut accordingly. And the guard we are using is a 1.5. And I don't know about y'all, but cutting a lot of weight or bulk down on a waver is always one of the most satisfying things. Just to see the waves kind of come to life after cutting down all that bulk. But we're just continuing to cut it down with the 1.5 to get that nice even cut. And I'm staying real consistent, going with small strokes. I don't want to take off too much at once to where I get kind of reckless and forget that I'm supposed to be following the pattern of his waves. So I'm just taking it easy, going slow, making sure that I'm not going against at all. And you can see as we cut it down, those waves really start to pop. So right here, I just grabbed my blow dryer and a brush, and I'm just laying the hair back down, because what waves are just laid down curls. So after we cut through it, when it's all combed out, we want to make sure that we're laying it back down as best as possible before we get into the cut. So to start off this taper, we're gonna go ahead and set our guideline, starting at the bottom of the eyebrow and where the ear meets the head, and we're gonna go ahead and bald that out. And then we're gonna follow it up with the shaver just to get it a little bit closer to the skin, so that taper could pop a little bit more. And now moving on in the taper, we're gonna go with our clipper all the way open, going up about, I would say, 1/2 inch to maybe a full inch, because this isn't gonna be a very low taper, it's kind of like a mid taper. So we're gonna give ourselves some room to blend. And then to start getting rid of that line, we're gonna go in close, and then we're gonna open the lever gradually until that line is as blended out as possible. Always brushing the hair, because a waver constantly is brushing the hair, so you want to make sure you're doing the same as well when cutting it. Now to follow up that open step, we're going to go with our one guard all the way open, going up again about 1/2 inch to a full inch, keeping that same kind of round shape, because I want to keep the corners darker. I want to keep that edge up darker and that line behind the ear darker. So I'm giving the taper kind of a roundish shape to it. And now going above that one open, we're going to go with our two guard open, which will be the biggest guard that we use, trying to blend into that length as best as possible. And now I'm going to go with the grain with the 1.5 just to lay it down a little bit more. And now I'm going to use that 1.5 going the opposite way against the grain all the way open. And this is going to get rid of that line. And then I'm going to close it gradually as needed. And to get rid of that last line, I'm going to go ahead and grab my half guard all the way open. And I'm just going to go into that last line with the corners of my blade. And if open isn't doing the job, you'll see me start to close that lever gradually until that line is as blended out as possible. Now this is basically what the taper looks like before the detailing process, which is already pretty smooth. But as you all know, detail is what's going to separate you. So I'm going to go ahead with the corner of my blade all the way open and just get into those dark areas just to bring that taper together a little bit more and make it look a little bit more consistent and take it to that next level. So I'm just detailing right here, looking for those dark spots and just going in with the corner of my blade just to lighten them up. And now I'm going to go ahead and grab my 1.5 just to attack some lines that I see. And now I'm going to use my razor comb just to lay the hairs down and get rid of those hairs that I couldn't get with my clipper. This definitely is a cool trick to use to take your haircuts to another level. This is just a razor comb. You can get it on Amazon, the dollar store. And now to blend into his chops, he's somewhat of a beard. We're going to go with our clipper all the way open. And we're just going to do the same thing that we did on the taper, just going downwards. So I'm going in open, getting rid of that line, and then I'm going to follow it up with the one open. And this is going to blend into his chops here on his face. And now moving on to the neck taper. I'm going to go with my trimmer once again to set in our first guideline. And I'm going a little bit below the bottom of the ear. I don't want to take it too high, and we're just going to go ahead and ball that out. Letting the trimmer do the work. You don't want to press too hard on the skin to where you cause a lot of irritation and the skin turns red. So you want to make sure that you're letting the trimmer do the work. And now to get it a little bit closer to the skin and allow the haircut to last a little bit longer, we're going to go in with our shaver. And now following that up, we're going to go with our clipper all the way open. And with the neck taper, since we're covering a lot more ground and a lot more kind of canvas, right, because we have a wider area to blend on the neck, we're going to make our guideline a full inch. And we're just going to go straight across with it, just like we did with our first bald line, making sure that that guideline is even. I'm going over it multiple times. Now following that up, we're going to go with our one guard all the way open, going up again about a full inch right above that open guideline. Make sure you're brushing as you're setting in your guidelines, so we're getting as a clean cut as possible. And now we're going to go with the biggest guard that we are going to use, which is our 2 guard all the way open, and we're trying to blend into that length as best as possible. So we're flicking out as we get higher up with that 2 guard open. And now we're going to go with our 1.5 with the grain just to lay the hair back down and blend into that 2 guard open. And now we're going to start blending down. So that line between the 1 open and the 2 open, we're going to attack with our 1.5 all the way open. And then we'll close the lever gradually as needed to get rid of that line. And you can see as we play with that lever and open it and close it as needed, it starts to take out that line. It's not perfect because we always need to go back in detail, but it's coming out very easily. And now to get rid of that line between the 1 open and the clipper open, we're going to go with our 1/2 guard open. And again, we're going to go open and close it gradually as needed. And you'll see me start to use the corner a lot, especially in the back of the head, because the occipital bone, which is that bone that kind of bulges out in the middle of the head, it creates a lot of indentations and dark spots. So we need to put a little extra detail in the back. So you'll see me use a lot of the corner of the blade just so I don't take up that taper too high. And since that 1/2 guard kind of made a line, I went ahead and grabbed my 1 guard. And I'm going in open just to try to blend it out a little bit more. And that taper is coming together slowly. And now to blend a little bit more, because it's all about the detail, I went in ahead and grabbed my 1.5 guard all the way open. And I'm just going into those areas that I think need blended out a little bit more, and I'm just attacking them. And now to get rid of that last line, I'm going to go with my clipper closed. And then you'll see me gradually start to open the lever as we move up in this taper. And after we complete this step, this is what our taper is going to look like before detailing. And you can see it already looks pretty smooth. I could definitely line this up and send the client out the door and he would be satisfied. But as barbers, especially barbers that want to be the best we could be, we try to pay attention to detail just so we can separate ourselves from everyone else. And now I'm using the corners of the blade just to blend it a little bit better and get into those darker areas that we talked about. Staying real patient, real consistent with it. I don't want to overwhelm myself or get worried that, oh man, I'm kind of messing up here. No, fam, take your time. Make sure you're being consistent and you're executing on every step. And now we're going to go ahead and lower the hair behind the ears just to get rid of those flyaway hairs. So when we do line it up, we have a line that is crispy and that'll last a lot longer. And when lining up the nape area, I always start at the top of the ear. And what this prevents me from doing is taking up that line around the ear too high. And then I went ahead to the back of the neck and I'm going to connect it to the top of the ear in the middle. And that's going to allow me to get that nice crisp line that rounds about at the ear. And I'm just going over and detailing it. And you can see when we put a line on that taper, it just takes it to a whole nother level. And now getting into the front hairline, we're going to do the same exact thing as we did behind the ear. We're going to lay it down with the one guard all the way open, just so we can taper that hairline and get rid of all those stray hairs so the lineup can last that much longer. And when lining up the front, I always start in the middle and move either to the left or the right side, whichever you're more comfortable with. So I started in the middle and I'm moving towards the left side of his head. Alright. And I'm just trying to stay as natural as possible while getting it as sharp as possible. And especially with wavers, they usually have a lot of bangs because they're brushing their hair forward constantly. So don't be scared to kind of dig into the hair a little bit without pushing them back. And now I'm moving towards his right side. Our left side, I'm going to do the same exact thing. And you can see as we do that, that line starts to come together. And I'm staying real patient with it. I know the lineup, especially when you're learning, can be super awkward because you're kind of face to face with the client. They can see all your facial expressions if they're staring at you. But just stay calm, stay patient. And as long as you get that hairline sharp and as straight as possible without pushing him back, the client will always be happy. And this is a trick I've been using lately. I've been using the trimmer over a comb just to get rid of those hairs that kind of hang over the corners. And it just allows for a sharper line that lasts longer. But I'm just lining up that box area, keeping it natural. And now when lining up the arch area, I always start at the top of the arch. And then I'll go towards the bottom of the arch and I'll meet it in the middle. And what that's going to allow me to do is get that nice round arch shape without pushing it in too far to where the grow back looks crazy, because it's still pretty natural. And when we put the line on that taper, you can see how it all comes together. And I'm just going over that line, trying to get it as sharp as possible. And now going on to the opposite side of the head, we're going to do the same exact thing. And you want to make sure that you're always combing or brushing the hairline out and relining it, because you want to make sure that when the client goes home, takes a shower, and brushes their hair, that their lineup is still sharp, it's still crispy, and that they don't have all these hairs hanging over their hairline. So you want to make sure you're constantly brushing and combing out the hairlines to make sure you're giving them a hairline that lasts. You feel me? And now to go ahead and take this haircut to another level, I'm going to go ahead and brush back the hair on the hairline and apply some semi-permanent hair color. And the reason I brushed it backwards is because I don't want to spray it directly on top of the hair, because it allows the semi-permanent to brush off easily. So I want to brush it backwards to make sure I'm getting the color on the skin. And then you're going to see when I brush the hair back over, it looks super sharp, and the hair will kind of protect the color enhancement from water and other stuff like that. And now we're going to follow that up with some hair fibers just to give it that more natural dry look. And we're keeping it light. You want to make sure it's looking as natural as possible, not super painted on. And we're just filling in those light areas on the hairline and taking them to another level. And now I'm going to go ahead and reline it to get rid of all those extra hair fibers that are on the forehead. And now to lock in those hair fibers, I'm going to use some holding spray, hairspray, whatever you use to lock them in. I'm just going to spray it on the hairline and then blow dry it to lock it in. And now we're going to go ahead and attack that joint with the razor. You want to make sure when you use the razor, you're stretching the skin. Just because when you don't stretch the skin, it's a lot more easy to cut the client. So when you stretch the skin and then go in with the razor, it gives the razor a nice smooth glide and helps prevent against you cutting them. And another trick that I've been using is using the razor behind the ear to get rid of those hairs that kind of grow back super fast. But you want to be careful that you're not cutting them here either, so stretch that ear down and just get rid of those little hairs. And now to add some detail, we're going to go ahead and coast the waves to get rid of all those flyaway hairs and stray hairs and just make that nice finished look. But the client came in looking rough, waves kind of non-existent, but we went ahead and got them together with a nice mid taper with the 1.5 waves. Hit them with that nice crisp line. Go ahead and hit that subscribe and like button. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at Dreclipperhands. My goal is to hit 10K here soon. So family, thank you for watching. Drop a comment down below what you think about this cut. And yeah, catch y'all next time.